let's talk a little bit about the background of this kind of testing. First, we get to the anatomy. The artery has three basic layers. Just like anything else, as you get deeper and deeper into it, you can slice that out into about 10, 12, 15 layers. But the basic layers are the lining, the intima, that metabolic layer that's so important. The media is a muscle layer, and that's important for structure. That basically supports that lining layer, the intima layer, the metabolic layer, where the oxygen is dropped off, carbon dioxide's picked up, metabolites are dropped off to the tissues, and waste products are picked up from the tissues. The adventitia is the connective tissue that keeps that artery in the place where it's located. The intima regulates vascular tone, permeability, metabolic exchange, nutrients and wastes, just as we've discussed. Media determines elasticity, which regulates continuous delivery of blood to the tissues. So a lot of this vascular testing, as you'll see, involves interaction with the intima, the metabolic side of the artery, and how the media, the muscular side of that artery wall, responds. You can get increased arterial stiffness, contributing to increased blood pressure, impaired heart blood supply, atherogenesis, in other words, athero meaning thrombus or plaque. Genesis meaning making, so plaque making and microvascular damage. That's the theory behind this type of vascular testing. Can we see how much stiffness is being created by plaque in the vascular wall and poor health with the intima and the media? Now, the most popular tests are FMD, flow-mediated dilatation or dilatation, depending on your preference on pronunciation. It assesses the endothelium or the intima function and contributes to measurement of progression of atherosclerosis. In other words, the theory here again is if you impact the metabolites associated with the intima, how much is that impacting the ability of the artery to expand or dilate or contract? Pulse wave velocity, PWV, assesses the stiffness. Augmentation index, AI, also evaluates arterial stiffness. PAT, the peripheral arterial tone, and digital thermal rebound, DTM. These measure responses to stress in a post-occlusive artery. In other words, you occlude the artery and then you see how well that artery can still respond to stresses. Again, key part here is that metabolic lining, that layer, the intima, or the endothelium of that artery. Non-invasive vascular functions tests can provide additional information to biomarkers, structural testing. The intima is, as you may remember, the source of NO, or nitric oxide. The intima lines the entire arterial system. It provides crucial metabolic functions such as fuel, oxygen, and waste exchange with the cells. The intima protects the artery walls from oxidized LDL and other pathogens which lead to plaque. So as you remember, that small dense LDL and oxidized LDL, quote, bad cholesterol, that's the stuff that can undergo what's called transcytosis. Trans meaning going through, and cytosis meaning the cell, going through the cell. And what transcytosis is, oxidized LDL, small dense LDL, actually going through the intima lining cells of the artery wall when they are damaged or stressed with cardiovascular inflammation. That oxidized small dense LDL can't go through the next layer, the media layer. So it gets stuck between the intima lining and the media layer. That is exactly what plaque is. So you get things like hypertension, diabetes, prediabetes, most of all, hypercholesterolemia, heart failure, obesity, smoking, aging, menopause, other things leading to things like cardiovascular inflammation. Then you get endothelial dysfunction, the lining of the artery wall, the intima, it doesn't function as well. Then you get that transcytosis. The small dense LDL, the oxidized LDL starts passing through that layer of the endothelium. It gets stuck in between the endothelium and the media, and then you get plaque. You get set up in this process of having plaque, small dense LDL and oxidized LDL that's undergone transcytosis. It's gone through the intima lining cells and it's gotten stuck between them and the media, the muscle layer of the artery wall. Your immune system recognizes that and says, that's not what should be happening. This shouldn't be there. So the immune system sends in cells which release enzymes to soften and digest that plaque. That's called hot plaque. That hot plaque, if it leaks back through, undergoes transcytosis again and comes back into the bloodstream from passing back through that intimal cell wall. That hot plaque will, when it touches blood, can form a clot. If it's big enough and goes to the heart, it causes a heart attack. If it's big enough and goes to the brain, it causes a stroke. And when it's microscopic and it goes on for decades, it can cause heart failure and dementia.